So let's go to plumusnews.com that has a 3-part write-up. This is part 3. Disclosed truths. There's more damning alleged evidence against Smart. Even though he's dead, evidence provides a clearer picture of what happened inside Cabin 28 that night and why and how he and Bo Bede were allegedly involved in the deaths of 4 people. 2 years ago, Gamberg told the Sacramento Bee and others that a counselor, who will remain anonymous, at the Veterans Administration in Reno came forward with information concerning Smart. He said Smart confessed while he was his patient. This occurred during a 7th appointment with Smart just weeks after the Keddie murders. Smart allegedly wanted to clear his conscience and admitted to killing Sue and her daughter, Tina Sharp. Quote, I killed the woman and her daughter, but I didn't have anything to do with the boys, end quote, according to the counselor's recollection from May 1981. Smart could have been under the false assumption that what he told his counselor would remain confidential, but the law states otherwise when it comes to a confession of murder. D. Mack, who has researched Smart's alleged confession, pointed out that the counselor said that while Smart was talking about Sue's murder, Smart was a 0 during the confession. No stress, flat effect, until he mentioned Tina. When asked why Tina didn't run away, Marty indicated he'd incapacitated her, according to the counselor. DMAC is inclined to believe Tina was already dead. Even the counselor didn't ask for more details, or Smart didn't provide any. When asked for motive, Smart told the counselor that he was convinced Sue was responsible for Marilyn wanting a divorce. In looking at what's been amassed concerning the Smart's troubled relationship, there are many reasons why it wasn't working out for the couple. It seemed doomed from the beginning as one follows the dysfunctionality of their relationship. Smart told his counselor he had to kill Tina because she saw the whole thing. I couldn't have a witness. The counselor said he advised Marty he needed to turn himself in. The counselor said his patient just smiled at his advice. When asked about a polygraph test that law enforcement requested Smart take soon after the murders, Smart said to his counselor, quote, I beat it. Those things are easy to beat. I was lying and they let me go, end quote. Some allege that he actually failed, but his buddy, Sheriff Thomas, told everybody he passed, because they either had some drug business or whatever. Gamberg said that in an earlier session with the counselor, Smart was so angry that they couldn't achieve a worthwhile dialogue. Although the counselor couldn't remember the name of the woman Smart was angry with, Gamberg said it was Sue Sharp. The counselor told Gamberg that he alerted the authorities, DOJ at the time, and was surprised it didn't lead to the arrest. The counselor said that he called DOJ and asked for the special agents working the Keddie case, the supposedly compromised agents, Bradley and Krim. He said he told them of the confession, and he was told the partners would like to meet him. Gamberg said that the agents did meet with the counselor, but they dismissed his allegations as hearsay. Whoa! Here again is part of the evidence that makes Gamberg and DMAC strongly believe that the Keddie murders were part of a cover-up. Nothing else makes sense to them. Again, Bo Bede was probably a person of interest to DOJ, and they in part were helping him. But more than likely, it was part of a bigger conspiracy. DMAC points to the possible involvement of 2 alleged corrupt DOJ special agents and their potential involvement in the big drug smuggling operations then backed by the CIA in the early 1980s. Also, Smart, so this is like the Tom Cruise movie American Made, and the Barry Seal situation, smuggling drugs for the CIA. Also, Smart went on to tell the counselor that allegedly he and Sheriff Doug Thomas were friends. Thomas lived in Cabin 28 prior to the Sharps' arrival, both Gamberg and DMAC learned. It was an easy walk along the Keddie Resort Road from Cabin 26 to Cabin 28. They could have met in the bar or allegedly have been involved in nefarious activities. Smart said Thomas allegedly allowed him to live in Cabin 28 for a time when Smart was having marital problems with Marilyn. Okay, hold on a second here. So supposedly, not only does the sheriff live in Cabin 28 where all these people are murdered, shortly after he no longer lives there. But the neighbor, Marty Smart, also lived in cabin 28? Does anybody find this strange? In information recovered by DMAC, Thomas was asked if he knew Martin Smart. Thomas said he and Marty were great pals, and Marty spent hours with him while on patrol. Thomas said that Martin and Marilyn Smart allegedly came to him once for marriage counseling, but he said he pointed out he was hardly the person to give advice. Thomas was recently divorced. Wow. What happened? The night and early morning hours of the murders have been the subject of intense investigation. There's discussion that the two men had time to change from their suits into jeans and denim jackets before entering cabin 28 and allegedly attacking Sue Sharp. One of the individuals who was in cabin 28 that night reported under hypnosis that he saw two men wearing jeans and jean jackets. Under this theory, they subdued Sue Sharp, partially changed back to their suits, and headed back to the bar. Just before closing time, they could have returned to cabin 28 and continued their alleged abuse. Gamberg, however, thinks that the two men allegedly subdued Sue Sharp and then returned later in their suits. He doesn't believe they took time to change clothes. He doesn't believe they wore denim that night. Another individual said he saw Smart burning clothes in a wood stove later that morning. Gamberg did not name the individual. There is no evidence that bloody clothing allegedly worn by two men during the crime was recovered, and the clothing would have been bloody, Gamberg emphasized. Blood-spattered clothing, socks, and girls' shoes were found in the living room of cabin 28 by investigators, but they seemed to belong to members of the family and not potential killers. Besides what clothing the two men allegedly wore, there's a slight time discrepancy. Smart told special agents they left the bar before 2 a.m. Gamberg said his source saying she dropped John and Dana off at cabin 28 between 10 and 11 p.m. And again, it's actually, some people believe the source is a male and not, the person who dropped them off. The boys went to the front door, Gamberg said, not around to the back to John's bedroom. There was no outside light on, but the driver could see light from inside the cabin. She said it was real eerie. She said she was afraid and uncomfortable, Gamberg said. She left immediately. Wow, this is really creepy too, because this is kind of weird. Is this just an intuition thing? Like why was there a need to say that? I believe they probably went in the front door. The faint light could be the bathroom light or Sue on the couch with only the TV on. I do believe Johnny and Dana were in the basement when the killers entered, and Sue was fast asleep in the small bed just inside the girls' bedroom door, DMAC explained. John's bedroom could only be accessed outside in the rear of the cabin. DMAC believes they heard a noise, possibly a scream, and ran up the steep flight of back stairs to see what was the matter. For some reason, that lower room appears never to have been processed by law enforcement. If that room had been processed, there might be evidence that the two teens were there before they were murdered. Dana was a diabetic and would more than likely have left his insulin and other evidence behind, according to DMAC. Either way, the two teens walked into a living nightmare. There's a likelihood that John rushed to support his mother, who was allegedly being brutalized by Smart, Bo Bede, and probably others. John was immediately assaulted according to the evidence. At some point, Dana started to leave the room, but he was savagely struck in the head from behind with a hammer or the Daisy 880 pellet rifle DMAC claims was used in the crimes. Gamberg believes the torture, especially of Sue Sharp, continued for quite a while. This was no spontaneous event. The killers were in cabin 28 for a while, he said. DMAC believes the blood found on the bottoms of Sue's feet and evidenced in a few bloody footprints in the living room show that someone walked her around to see what she had allegedly made them do to the other victims. Smart would have been aware of when railroad crews started a new shift early that morning and made sure they were all well away from the cabin by at least 4 a.m., April 12th, according to DMAC. Smart and Bo Bede would have walked home to cabin 26 and gone to bed. Smart stated to special agents that he was at home until around 10 a.m. the following morning. Fact or fiction? During one of two hypnosis sessions, Justin Smart described a dream he had that involved a boat and what was happening to the passengers on the boat. Justin is the 12-year-old boy who spent the night of the murders with the Sharp boys. Under hypnosis, Justin describes the day he'd had. I just thought of something else too. Okay, is this all coincidental? But the last names here are Sharp and Smart, both meaning highly intelligent. I mean, is this just another coincidence? I mean, that is kind of weird, though. I mean, Sharp, I guess, Sharp and Smart are both not the rarest last names in the world, but they're also not that common. I mean, I don't know, kind of weird. Under hypnosis, Justin described the day he'd had. He said that later in the day, Sheila and Tina were next door at the Seabolt's house. Tina came home about 7:30 p.m. to wash the dishes and then returned next door. Sheila was spending the night there, but Tina had to return home. Justin said that Tina returned around 9:30 p.m. Okay, so Tina is at the home, then she goes to the Seabolts. Then she comes back at 7:30, then goes back to the Seabolts. Then she goes back to the cabin, 28, the Sharps, at 9:30 p.m. and goes to bed. Wow. Okay. Justin, Ricky, and Sue Sharp were known to have been watching The Love Boat on TV before going to bed at 10 p.m. That seems to be the theme, as he described an alleged dream in which two men were involved in a fight with John and Dana, and they got thrown overboard. In the dream, one of the men had a pocket knife in his right hand and cut Sue Sharp in the chest. He also said the same man had a hammer in his other hand. DMAC is first of all a skeptic when it comes to hypnosis, but he's especially skeptical when it comes to Sheriff Thomas conducting the first hypnosis session with the youth. Or as Joe Pesci would say, with the ute. Thomas attended 2 different training sessions to learn hypnosis, especially to get someone to recall witnesses. Not long afterward, he was using it on a possible witness in perhaps the worst crime in Pluma's history. So his only experience were 2 training sessions at that time, is that correct? According to the transcript of an interview in 2003, Thomas said that he did the hypnosis with Justin, according to info from DMAC's website. Under hypnosis, May 19th, 1981, this time by Dr. Jerry Dash, a psychologist at the Children's Hospital in LA, Justin told of Tina Sharp. He said Tina allegedly woke up and appeared in the living room to see what was going on. She was carrying a blanket. According to what Justin said, under hypnosis, a man allegedly grabbed her and carried her through the kitchen and down the back stairs. The man then returned, removed a hunting knife that someone had stuck in one of the walls, picked up the blanket, and left again, according to Gamberg. Gamberg said that the residents of one of the neighboring cabins reportedly heard a muffled scream. When they didn't hear anything else, they went back to sleep. The scream could have come from Tina inside the house, according to DMAC, or it could have come from her when she was carried outside, Gamberg said. They agree that apparently there was only one scream that might have come from Tina, and then it was silenced. That's when they believe she was killed. The 2 investigators have different ideas about what happened. Gamberg believed that someone noticed Tina when she walked out of the bedroom, grabbed her, and took her down the back stairs and killed her. She was probably stashed in a nearby vehicle and then driven away at some point. This could have been at any time since no roadblocks were established and vehicles weren't searched. The location of some of the vehicles in the area was photographed as the DOJ helicopter flew over Keddie about noon, April 12th. And supposedly a Meeks vehicle was there as well. DMAC believes that Tina was murdered inside the house. DMAC believes Tina was attacked in bed alongside her mother in the opposite bed when the killers first entered the cabin. DMAC doesn't believe she woke much later, as Justin claimed, coming out of the bedroom carrying a blanket. The only blanket found in the crime scene was the one Justin claimed to have used to cover Sue, which evidence shows came from the bed in which Sue slept. He believes that she was roused when they went into the bedroom to grab Sue Sharp. This is evidenced by blood spatter discovered in that room, he said, including blood on both beds. She was then carried outside and across the narrow swinging bridge to the other side of the Spanish Creek, according to DMAC's theory. She was left there until someone had time to take her body to Camp 18 near Feather Falls. To use the swinging bridge, the individual carrying Tina would have risked notice, even at that time of night, even in the dark, and the swinging bridge is outside of Keddie. Instead of following the main road around Keddie, the individual would have gone right off Spanish Oak Drive. That road winds around and then comes out into an open area. The bridge was close to a house. Gamberg knew the people who lived in that house in 1981. They had dogs that barked and would have alerted them to someone or something coming onto the property. Gamberg believes the owners would have greeted anyone with a loaded firearm. And then there's the discrepancy about whether the gate on the bridge was locked or open. DMAC believes it was left unlocked on that particular night. Actually, DMAC pointed out sheriff's report that showed that the gate was always unlocked, including that night. The gate is also high enough that no one could have climbed over it. If the gate was left open, then there would still have been the risk and challenge of carrying a blanket-covered girl the full length of the bridge from one side of Spanish Creek to the other. The way to access that part of the river is along a private drive and past at least one home, according to Gamberg. But when considering risk, DMAC pointed out that to drive out of Keddie, someone would have had to pass the 2-story dorms and hotel, as well as approximately 20 cabins. But if they put the body in, let's say, even in the back seat covered up or in the trunk, maybe they wouldn't have been that scared to do that. I don't know. The bridge does seem riskier. Smart and Bo Bede. Smart told law enforcement that the first time he met Bo Bede was at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Reno while both were in the psychiatric unit. According to Gamberg, a man named D. Lake reportedly drove Smart to the VA in Reno. Lake was a veteran, and supposedly Lake's car was also photographed by this DOJ helicopter at the scene. Some people believe they borrowed his vehicle to dispose of Tina's body. Lake was a veteran service representative at Feather River College back then. Lake and Smart may have met on campus or in Keddie. Lake allegedly had several other friends in Keddie. In his third therapy session, Smart told his counselor that he was suffering from PTSD. This was about the time the term started being used, according to Gamberg. But Gamberg doesn't believe Smart had any reason to have PTSD. Lake allegedly might have suggested it to Smart as a way to get veterans assistance and possible benefits. Smart did serve in the Army in Vietnam, but he was a cook on a military base near Saigon, one of the safest places to be during the war, Gamberg said. According to the counselor, he asked Smart if he ever saw action or received rockets, mortar fire, ever even fired his rifle or heard gunfire. No, was the reply, but he stated when laying in bed he worried it might happen. When he was pushed on the subject, he admitted he was never fearful and that he had an easy tour in the military, according to DMAC's information. Bo Bede served in the Air Force, Gamberg said, but there are discrepancies in Bo Bede's timelines, according to DMAC. Bo Bede claimed to be several things, including a peace officer, which was proven to be untrue. In one account, Bo Bede said that he had to retire from Cook County Sheriff's Department because he was shot in the groin during a robbery. It's true, Bo Bede was involved in a robbery in which his uncle was shot in the groin by responding police, but nothing is true, according to DMAC. Taking into account some of Bo Bede's known aliases and varying birthdays, he would have been 9 years old when he did some of the things he claimed DMAC worked out. What is known for certain is that Bo Bede served time for armed robbery in Chicago's Statesville prison in Joliet. He also served time in California, according to Gamberg. Jimmy Rini, whom DMAC considers to have been Bo Bede's de facto father after the death of his father and uncle, was heavily involved in organized crime in Chicago. Rini helped raise and mentor Bo Bede, and allegedly, Bo learned a lot from the outfit enforcer. Following Bo Bede's known trail, DMAC discovered Bo was in Vegas at multiple addresses, suspicious addresses on many levels due to their locations and their history. Bo was not in Vegas by chance, he said. Bo Bede was allegedly involved during this time with people heavily connected with moving large amounts of drug and money around. I've maintained Bo was in Vegas as an alleged enforcer and desert hole digger. This is when Tony Spilotro was destroying the mob's stronghold over Nevada, gambling during his bloody reign, DMAC said. And DMAC maintains there was a connection with a group known as the Chicago Outfit, run over the years by Al Capone and Sam Giancana, who also had control of interests in Nevada gambling. Bo Bede was allegedly long involved with law enforcement in that it involved payoffs and the law looking the other way, according to what DMAC has learned. It might sound a bit wild on the surface, but DMAC has done his homework when it comes to Bo Bede's link to organized crime. He's also found many links with Chicago's mobs and activities in various parts of the U.S. DMAC wrote in 2013 about Bo Bede's alleged activities, but we definitely have Bo associated with Hyman Larner in the 50s, and Hyman Larner as the controlling operative with the Bush-Reagan CIA drugs for arms deals. If that was Larner's and the CIA's coke being trafficked in and out through Plumas, as it definitely was just south in Yosemite and Mariposa County, the case has come full circle. If Bo was allegedly connected higher in the ops than previously believed and asserted, then he wasn't just a loser drifter down on his luck, according to DMAC in January 2014. DMAC bases much of his research on the newspaper coverage and books about Chicago's organized crime from the 50s through at least the 80s. According to some in-depth research into VA records in Reno, there's proof that Smart was a patient there, but there are no records that Bo Bede was ever there in any of its medical departments, DMAC said. It also has profound implications on the gravity of why Bo was in Keddie, as well as Marty's and others' local law enforcement alleged connections in 1981 involvement in the drug trade, according to DMAC. Bo Bede left Plumas County April 14, 1981, right after his interview and release by DOJ. Lake drove him to Reno so he could catch a bus to Klamath Falls, Gamberg said. As these connections are pondered, it makes sense why DOJ sent 2 organized crime special agents to Keddie instead of special agents from homicide. Smart probably didn't mean anything to DOJ, and the family and friend who lost their lives were unimportant to them, but Bo Bede could have meant something. Gamberg has repeatedly said that the entire case of the Keddie murders was handled badly. Hagwood recently repeated that it sat for years in the local sheriff's office without anyone doing anything to move towards solving it. And as pointed out before, the sheriff received a job with Post, Peace Officer Standards and Training, just 6 weeks after the murders. Both Gamberg and DMAC believe that no one can be vetted for such a position in the DOJ in just 6 weeks, even in 1981. Smart also had a record, according to Gamberg. He believes that the 2 were allegedly involved in con games, including selling fake ads and subscriptions to non-existent magazines. Was that like a big scam back then? Curious. A notice for bogus solicitations appeared in the Five Feather Publishing newspapers April 1st, 1981. April 1st. It stated, an organization identified as law enforcement report has been soliciting donations for advertisements in a CHP yearbook or CHP journal. Both are non-existent publications. In Shasta and Tehama counties, solicitations have been made by telephone, and in at least one instance, the caller identified himself as a CHP sergeant. The CHP is not soliciting money for these non-existent publications, nor has it lent its name to any organization for the purpose of obtaining donations or advertisements. Citizens receiving calls should notify their nearest California Highway Patrol office. I wonder if there's any recordings of those and if they can be matched to Bo Bede's or Smart's voice. DMAC's research uncovered this notice. Both he and Gamberg believe it's exactly the kind of scams Bo Bede would have gotten Smart involved with. This tells us that Marty and Bo didn't meet at the VA unless Bo was a visitor, DMAC explained about the notice. This appeared April 1st, which means it was happening long before. It takes time and many attempted scam calls before it percolates up from several complaints across many counties and then through law enforcement channels and then to the public through newspapers, he explained. When Smart and Bo Bede left Reno together, Bo Bede was invited to share the Smart's 2-bedroom cabin. In one of the interviews between Smart and law enforcement, he talked about getting Bo Bede's medication and making sure it had the correct dosage. Smart then said that Bo Bede was out for the night, meaning unconscious due to his medications. It's unknown if Smart was saying that as part of the alibi, that Bo Bede would have been sound asleep and couldn't have been involved in the murders, or if he's just mentioning it. Regardless of when they met, DMAC believes that Bobeed called the shots. Although the murders might not have been Bobeed's idea, there's nothing to suggest he wasn't involved, according to Gamberg. Looking back, actually, you know what? What if Bobeed was involved with some kind of drug deal gotten bad that Johnny and Dana were involved with? And something happened there, and Martin Smart, being friends with Bobeed, what if the plan was to murder everybody in the house, including the boys, but he made sure that Bo didn't do that because his son Justin was among the boys? I mean, this is all really weird. Looking back, the crime scene and Keddie weren't handled right from the very beginning, Gamberg said. The scene wasn't immediately secured. Jamie Seabolt from neighboring Cabin 27 not only helped Rick and Greg Sharp and Justin outside the bedroom window, he admitted that he went up the back stairs and into the cabin to see if anyone else was left alive inside Cabin 28. It's unknown if he deliberately interfered with the crime scene, but he could have tracked through it, potentially contaminating evidence. And Don Davis, Sue Sharp's brother, was reportedly at the scene either just before or about the same time as Sheriff's Deputy Hank Clement arrived, according to DMAC's research. Reportedly, Sheila Sharp called her uncle right after resort co-owner Jan Albin phoned the sheriff's office to report the murders. Under Sheriff Ken Shanks was reportedly second on scene, and then Sergeant Jerry Shaver. Sheriff Thomas arrived at 8:50 a.m., Gamberg said. Okay, hold on a second. If someone were to make the case that this case is a psyop, we have the Sharps, knives are sharp. We have Ken Shanks, the undersheriff. We have Sergeant Jerry Shaver. Obviously, shaving is done with sharp blades. I mean, is this too many coincidences? I don't know, man. Sheriff Thomas arrived at 8:50 a.m., Gamberg said, according to his records. Investigators Dennis Forcino and Al Brubaker, who were fishing together at Antelope Lake, arrived at the scene as soon as they could manage. Davis arrived very early at the scene. In a video of him taken some years following the murders, he didn't say whether he went into the house when he first arrived. What he did say on video was that there was confusion about who the victims were inside the cabin. Initially, the sheriff's office thought the victims were Sue and two of her children. Later that day, Don said they brought out the bodies for him to identify. Davis said he recognized his sister and nephew John and someone he didn't know, which was Dana. Davis said that about 2 hours after he got home, he was asked to go to Anderson's mortuary in Quincy and help determine if the female victim was his sister or niece. He said he determined it was his sister. When Gamberg was asked to confirm Davis's remark on the video, he said the bodies were taken directly to the coroner's office in Sacramento. Gamberg said there is no evidence in his files that they were taken to Quincy first. Wow. Okay. That's just another weird thing. On scene, what has totally stumped DMAC is how quickly DOJ special agents were in a helicopter flying over the scene April 12th. That is kind of weird, isn't it? Considering the logistics of getting a call at their homes near Sacramento, getting a helicopter, and then flying time, he alleges Thomas may have contacted them immediately after he learned of the situation. In other words, he wasted no time in contacting DOJ organized crime agents. Gamberg said Thomas must have made the decision before viewing the crime scene, or just shortly after. And you know what? The phone records would make that clear. Did Sheriff Thomas call DOJ immediately after receiving this call himself? And why would that be? But how would the sheriff know the crime deserved the attention of organized crime agents unless he immediately deduced Bobeed was involved? Or is there a theory that Thomas himself might be involved? How would Thomas know Bobeed, who'd only been in Keddie for 10 days? Not the month he told law enforcement and DOJ. Each made it clear they'd never met. Keddie wasn't immediately secured, Gamberg said. Although law enforcement took down license plate numbers of vehicles that were present, no one set up a roadblock and searched vehicles for evidence. That evidence could have included Tina Sharp. Indicating the list of license plate numbers taken down that day, Gamberg said there were certain vehicles known to have been there that day and identified in aerial photographs that don't appear on existing logs. How curious. There's one road in and out of Keddie, Gamberg said. Without securing the road, setting up a checkpoint, anyone could have smuggled out anything. There are at least two differing opinions of what happened that night. They vary slightly. Gamberg, who was familiar with Keddie in 1981, said that late at night it was so dark you could hardly see the hand in front of your face. It was that dark. Gamberg believes the predators were already with Sue Smart. The teenage boys arrived unexpectedly, walked right into it, and probably tried to help her. It was a rough, brutal fight, but the predators were there for a while. It wasn't over quickly. It's Gamberg's opinion, based on what he knows, that Sue was the last one alive. She was made to witness what happened to her son and his friend. She probably saw what happened to her daughter earlier. This is the end of the 3-part series for now. Okay, so a lot of issues here, but they do bring in a good point because, wow.